couldn't be more thrilled. We're going to be talking with Shamim Sarif. Shamim, how are you this afternoon?
I am doing very well. Thank you very much, Robert. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thanks so much for making the time. We were talking just a moment ago that we're sandwiched in here between a book launch party you said in New York and a book launch party there in Toronto. Plus, you're starting a new movie. Do you get a day off this week, or are you just going?
No, there hasn't been a day off for quite a while. But you know what? I'm not going to complain because, so often we have a lot of days off as writers and directors, and they're not necessarily what we choose. So I'm just going with it.
Oh, so periods of more days off than you'd care for. If you would, give esteemed audience a little bit of an overview of your background, both as a filmmaker and an author.
Sure. Well, I'm lucky enough to tell stories in more than one medium. So I started out writing short stories, and then my first novel, The World Unseen, got published. And around the same time, I was writing screenplays for film because that was always something that I loved and was interesting to me. So I've kind of pursued parallel careers as a novelist, screenwriter, and then segued into being a film director. I've made 3 features and 1 documentary. And the features are I Can't Think Straight, The World Unseen, and Despite the Falling Snow, most recently, with Rebecca Ferguson and Charles Dance, all of which I wrote and directed, and which I was lucky enough to get 47 awards between all these 3.
And 47 awards. I don't know that we can chalk all of those up to luck.
Oh, okay. I'll give you a couple. And then in the meantime, I've written 3 novels. The 4th of which is the Athena Protocol, which is the one that is launching right now in the U.S. and Canada. That's right there. The very one. I have my own copy right here.
There we are.
And the Athena Protocol is my first foray into the thriller genre, and it's about a rogue agency run by 3 very successful women who take on human trafficking and issues that deal with women and children that governments don't have the time or budget to deal with, and they run a team of younger female agents who are the ones that get in there in the field and deal with these nasty specimens.
It's a wonderful, thrilling tale. I enjoyed it. In fact, let's just we're going to talk about a little bit of everything. As much as you'll humor me for today, I want to pick your brain about filmmaking, writing. I know you're writing a musical, so all kinds of questions for you about all of that stuff. But let's start with the Athena Protocol. So I guess my first question for you is, what made you, after writing for adults, making movies for adults, what made you want to write a young adult novel?
Sure. Well, the idea for the Athena Protocol came to me from going to tech conferences and just seeing people who've made a lot of money, who've made their mark in the world, maybe in technology and whatever it is. Now they're starting to want to kind of turn their attention to the world's big issues like hunger and climate change. And so I was thinking about how you would deal with something like slavery, trafficking, because issues to do with women and children, also the LGBTQ community, have always been very important to me to highlight in my storytelling. I never thought of the Athena Protocol specifically as a YA novel. I didn't think, I'm going to write a YA novel. I knew it was going to be an action-adventure thriller. But then I thought about writing it from the perspective of Jessie, who's the youngest agent on the team. She has a lot to learn. She's the most immature, but I wanted to have somebody who could have a really interesting character arc. She's super smart, maybe not as emotionally smart as she is intelligently smart, but that's something she learns to along the way in interacting with her team. So I think because it's from her perspective, and there's a little sarcasm, there's a little humor, there's the stresses with her mom, I guess it fit also into the YA category as well as just a regular adult book.
Yeah, I agree. I ask that question on a regular basis, and yet I also kind of hate it just a little bit because there is no young adult story, there is no middle grade story. There's stories that happen to feature enough details that you can, when you go to shelve them, you can put them in a place where they're likely to attract the readers that would like them. But I think the Athena Protocol would appeal to readers who aren't yet teens and readers who are well beyond their teens.
Yeah, I mean, it's only been out a couple of days, but, the first few reviews that I've been getting by email and on Amazon and Goodreads have been, 5 stars from people who are not actually young adults. So I think women more in their 30s, 40s, couple I know in their 20s. So it seems so far to be cutting across ages, because there's a range of ages with the 6 women in the novel too. So
I assume at this point you've got a built-in audience that will look forward to whatever you decide to create next.
Well, there is that, and they've been incredibly supportive of me over the years. So yeah, I'm really lucky that I Can't Think Straight in the World Unseen particularly grew this amazing fan base. I think there was a dearth of stories for women of color, for young LGBTQ women, and young men too. And I think that those early stories, I Can't Think Straight in particular, as a book and a movie, appealed to a lot of people who didn't have those kinds of role models or people like them that were being represented in movies and films. Now representation is a lot wider, but it wasn't at the time. So that really stood out, and I think it made a huge impact. So a lot of those fans have followed me on my journey up till now, which is wonderful.
Let me ask you a dumb question in the hope of prompting you to give a great answer. Why, and I think the answer is sort of implicit within the story, but again, dumb question. Why was it important to you that all of the founders of the Athena Protocol, all of the agents, everyone involved, be women, and many of them women of color, and also that their missions surround, not exclusively, but very much around freeing and doing right in the world for women?
Yeah. Look, I think the diversity element came because that's what my life looks like, and I think it's what a lot of people's lives look like. And it's now the representation is getting stronger on screen and in corporate environments in real life. But it really, when the last 20, 30 years that I've been around, that was not the case. And so I felt a kind of responsibility to put out there the kind of work that reflected me, that reflected the world I wanted to live in. And so hence the diversity and having women particularly. And then the fact that they are women helping other women, we live in a kind of bubble where, I get to be in Toronto, I'm in London, I'm in New York, it's LA, it's all fantastic and it's liberal, and I'm surrounded by people who think very similarly to me in many respects. But much of the world is still not like that. And I think, 50% of the world's resources, i.e. women, are being underused in a large chunk of the world. Places you can obviously think of places like Saudi Arabia, where women don't even have the right, to vote or drive or work or anything without the permission of their husbands, or going out on the street without being covered. And then that carries through into so many different countries where women don't have the cultural or legal rights over their bodies, over the way they use their time. So I felt like women needed that helping hand. And the Athena Protocol, it's about this group of agents, and they work internationally. This one is set a little bit in Africa and West Africa, a little bit in Eastern Europe, mostly in Eastern Europe. And the next one, because there's a sequel, will be in India. So, I think there are so many interesting places to explore the cultural binds that women and girls still find themselves restricted by.
And when can we look forward to reading the sequel?
The sequel is out in October 2020, so literally same time next year. See you again.
Oh, beautiful.
So yeah, that's kind of it's a 2-book deal with HarperCollins, and so I've just delivered the first draft of that, and I'm working on edits shortly, and that's called The Shadow Mission. But it's also going to keep the same characters in play. It'll still be Jesse, Hal, and Caitlin working to bring down another dodgy group of people.
Good. There's a surplus of dodgy people in the world, so they need to get out there and do their best. So there's definitely a second book, which I guess you're writing just like in your break, your breaks between filming and writing your musical and everything else you've got going on. And then is it your hope that this would be kind of a recurring series that goes on forever? Do you have some planned ending point in your head?
I would love that to be a recurring series. For me, I think that there are 2 elements for me to the Athena Protocol. One is the mission, which I think is, it's the core plot of how are they going to bring down this human trafficker. And there are the reversals and the twists and the turns. But the most important thing to me is the character development. And I think with these 6 women, they've all got complex backgrounds. I think that the potential for them to grow character-wise through a series of novels or a TV series or a series of films, whatever that might be, is infinite, you know. And I think that's what for me makes it really compelling, is that while they're going through all of these missions, they're learning so much about themselves, about each other, about how to work together. And for me, that's what makes it really exciting as a series. So yeah, I could see this going on a while. And certainly at the end of the second book too, Jesse makes another turn into a different kind of worldview, which I think will keep it all sparky and exciting.
So I just heard you say she becomes a supervillain. Is that right?
No, that's not what I said, Robert. But
we'll have to wait till next October to find out. We can't spoil the book this early on.
It's a toll. Let's say that happened.
So, well, let me ask you this, because you, I'm assuming this is inspired by a love of things like Charlie's Angels, Mission Impossible, James Bond, that kind of thing. Were there any particular direct influences?
Well, listen, I've grown up with two, we have two teenage boys who are, 20 and 16 now. So we've watched every action movie under the sun over the last 15 years. You can be sure of that. But the ones that really stuck with me were the ones like, I think of Athena more equating to the Bourne series, if anything, the Bourne Identity and onwards, because there's a character journey involved. Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, those kinds of movies that have that character arc that is so crucial to the plot, I think were really exciting to me. And I hadn't really felt that I'd seen that with women, and I hadn't seen women who go through the kinds of things that the Athena agents go through and feel the fallout. And I think that when you've got young women fighting trafficking, seeing difficult things, fighting for their lives on a daily basis, getting hurt, and recovering, there's a fallout to that emotionally. And I wanted to have a group of women who are there for each other. They fight, they argue, they've got their differences, but they're also there to kind of help each other through those traumatic times. And I thought that would be really an interesting thing to explore, which I felt I hadn't seen so far in adventure and thriller books.